How's it going, everyone? It's Heaven's Mouthpiece here again with another book review, and today I am super excited to bring you a review on Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil by John Berendt. Sorry if that's not how you say his name. If he's watching this, he might be dead, I'm not sure. I didn't look it up beforehand, so it is what it is. I pronounced it wrong. But I'm specifically excited to talk about this book today because this is about the city of Savannah, Georgia. Now, Savannah, Georgia is a very special city to me because, one, I love the architecture. I thought it was beautiful when I went, and there's just a vibe about it when you go. Look up some pictures and you'll see what I'm saying. Now, this book focuses on the Savannah in the 1980s, kind of before it was what it was today, and there's a lot about mystery in this book. There's a crime that it follows, but it really is more about the history in Savannah and how society was operating during that time. Now, we're going to go over this book in detail. Now, I'm going to do a little B-roll clip for you guys and probably show you a couple pictures of Savannah so you get a little bit of a vibe of what's going on here. So stick around and I'll tell you more about this book. Now, if you watched a couple videos of mine by now already, you know I don't like to keep you waiting on the meat and potatoes of this video. I did like this book quite a bit. It wasn't what I expected, and out of 1 out of 10 scale, I would give this a 7. A few of the main points that I really liked about this book, and that John Berendt made very well mixed together, and a delicious cocktail of a book, I could say, was the fact that he combined the culture of Savannah so well with bringing out the real personalities who made up that culture. The way he intertwined these two aspects gave really good insight to how it was to be living in Savannah, since this is almost like a sales pitch of people trying to move to Savannah. That's more of what I thought of it as I was reading. This book is based on real-life events experienced by the author as he moved to Savannah, and over time, he did enjoy the city more and more. As he was from New York City, he would go back and forth from the two, and he found himself spending more and more time in the city. So the author here, John Berendt, he was an editor of the New York Times, and he's a bestseller, as this book was a bestseller. Now, throughout this book, he becomes more engrossed with the city of Savannah, and he slowly meets many of the people in the book. And it's clear from the beginning that he is telling people that he is writing a book that they're going to be included in, as throughout the story they're mentioning that, oh, you better put me in that book in the right way, or something along those lines. A friend recommended me this book on the premise that it was a murder mystery. Now, there is a murder in this novel, and there is some mystery to how it happens, but it's more of following a court case around. And the main thing that I got from this book was it was a deep dive into Savannah culture. And if anything, this book was really just a very elaborate way of convincing people to move to Savannah, because every second that I was reading on it, I thought, maybe I should take a trip to Savannah. It's not that far. And Savannah itself is very difficult to get to. They don't really have major airports, and it's very cut off from the rest of the world. And the author makes this clear. He says that the people in Savannah want to keep it this way, and because of it, it turns into a lot of unique characters and provides an ample breeding ground for certain behaviors and ways of life. The way that this book is structured is pretty unique. Each chapter revolves around a different character, or there might be a few chapters in a row which go around the same characters or same events. And Savannah provides a lot of unique personalities here. We get people who are all the way in the business field, who are many of them in real estate within the book. Some of them running bars illegally, and we get all the way into drag queens who are very successful. And this was back in the 1980s, before it was really an accepted thing like it is today. Building on what I was saying earlier, as Savannah is kind of difficult to get to, there's not a lot of main roads or highways to go through Savannah. So as a result, it breeds a lot of unique personalities of people who have stayed there for generations and have really gotten their way of life set, and they kind of continue down these paths of making themselves a little bit crazier in a way. Some of the wildest characters in this book include a woman named Childless, who's a drag queen in the 1980s, and I never really knew about the language that these drag queens had been using. This queen, this thing, just all kinds of words that you might hear in pop culture today. In fact, I know several people who talk literally word for word how this woman was talking, and this is a book from 40 years ago. So it was pretty incredible to see that in action. Now, some of the other characters that I really thought were interesting, one, Joe Odom. He's a lawyer who is constantly breaking the law and opening illegal businesses, but paying things off just barely enough to keep him out of jail. And he does go to jail a lot, but he always gets out within a few minutes or so, as he has someone bring him to the jail bailer, or he knows the police. It's always something weird with this guy. And there are plenty of other eccentrics who are highlighted in this book. The main character, Jim Williams, is a gay 50-something who is really not openly gay, but in his private life is, and he has this 20-year-old hooker that he keeps at his house who's insane. Now, that's where the murder mystery becomes involved, since there is an altercation between the two, and that makes up the murder mystery of this novel. Unlike a lot of books that are written in the 1900s, or even late 1900s, or even today, we see a big mix of both sides here. And especially in the South, there is a divide between the black and the white communities. And in the 1980s, it was far worse than it was today. And our author, John, is very intertwined within both. Like, he is on both sides, getting stories of what's happening in society, whether it be on the white side of society with the debutante ball, which they call the cotillion ball, and he goes to the black debutante ball as well, just to figure out what's going on and seeing how these societies operate. I really appreciated this part of the novel, since it gave a lot of insight into how these people lived. And when you go to Savannah, you will understand, like, there are neighborhoods which are pretty exclusively black. Now, he explains why this is so, as he talks to a lot of people who are developing real estate at the time. And Savannah used to actually be pretty decrepit. It was very nice back in like the 1800s, and it had a big downfall. And then they decided to make it all nice again in like the 1940s, 50s, 60s. And he talks to a lot of people who are developing these places. And there seems to be a feud between those who want to make projects which will help the black communities, which are typically poor, and then there are other people who want to keep the black communities, which have higher rates of crime, out of the city or in certain places. And he goes into a lot of discourse on why these people think these things, and I'm not going to put any judgments on who is right in these situations, but he definitely highlights a lot of the hypocrisy on both sides of the story. And this is very valuable to readers who are trying to get a little bit of perspective about the city and maybe how it would influence their life living there, since, like I said, this was kind of a sales novel for the city of Savannah, and ultimately I kind of wanted to live there after reading this. At the end of the day, though, this still is a murder mystery novel. Whether it was the whole main focus of the book is a different story. It really was only about half the book that focused on that. Now, this is probably the only murder mystery that would make you want to live in a location, especially since throughout the murder mystery there are witches involved and they're constantly casting spells, and there's just a lot of things going on which would make you think that you don't want to live there. But every sentence that I read, I was like, once again, would it be a bad time to visit Savannah right now? Once again, with the mystery component, we see a lot about court cases involved in the mystery component. So this book focused a lot more not on psyching you up on whether it was a creepy mystery. It's pretty cut and dry on what happens. Although at the end of the book, we are still left questioning what really did happen here. And it might be available online. I didn't look it up of the actual details of the case, but we get some confessions from the characters on what might have actually happened, and then some other confessions, so we are really left wondering in the end. And there's some large looming threat at the end of the day in this book where we just don't know exactly what happened at the end of this killing. For being a murder mystery novel, there was a heck of a lot about businesses and taxes in this book. And I'm not talking in a boring sense where we're going to be looking at tax codes or just reading through business filing statements from the SEC or something. I'm talking about the characters in this book, specifically Joe Odom, Jim Williams, and the Adlers. Joe Odom was the lawyer who I was talking about, who would always run kind of frisky businesses that were going sideways. And it was pretty interesting to see how these companies were working, and since they were so large in Savannah society and shaping how things were working, that they are able to operate on such strange measures and without very little regulation at all. It was very interesting that these businesses could even be alive at all, and it gives a pretty good insight to how businesses are run in Savannah. On the other side of the aisle, we see the very straightforward businessman. The main prominent one in the book is Jim Williams, who is also a person who's involved in our murder mystery aspect. And Jim Williams became immensely wealthy through the sale of real estate. He bought an island off the coast and sold all the mining rights, and then 3 days later the mining rights were revoked and the island was worth nothing. So he came up on a lot of money there, and he used that money to restore a lot of Savannah and ended up making a lot off that. And his sort of arch nemesis in this book is this man called Adler. That's his last name, and he is kind of the opposite of Jim Williams. Came from a lot of money, whereas Jim Williams didn't really come from anything. And he uses his money to create restoration projects, and his specific focus is on bringing values to the poor communities in Savannah. And that happens to be the black communities in Savannah. Now, that's where all the controversy comes in, and we get to see a lot about the interdealings between these companies and how, on a more human level, rather than a fiscal level, these operations and businesses are working. It gives a lot of insight on how these neighborhoods were developed and just how people are existing in the society in regards to finances and their money. There's something in this book for everyone. I really like the city of Savannah, so I was kind of uniquely interested in this novel. But I think you should also be interested in the city of Savannah. It's one of the best out there, especially in the United States. Extremely beautiful. Now, I would recommend this book to a friend, specifically someone who might be interested in the South United States, or just in general things regarding, say the start of the drag community, murder mystery, someone who's interested in court cases, or maybe someone who's just interested in financial and real estate dealings. There's a lot to go on here, and this is a very fun, easy read. I would recommend to just about anyone, really. So if you ever see a copy of Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, give it a shot, pick it up, maybe read a couple pages. It could be for you. Hey, and that's going to be all today, folks. I don't really have anything else for you regarding this book. I liked it a lot, and thank you for watching another one of my videos. Hopefully I do release a lot more of these. I have another one on Dune coming out very shortly. I know many of you have been waiting for that, so I'm trying not to keep you waiting any longer. So if it doesn't take you too much of your time, please go like this video, leave a comment. I would really appreciate it. I do respond to all of those, so if you leave one, I will probably respond to you, if not do a video that you recommend me doing. And last but not least, please subscribe. It means the world to me, and it helps me keep creating these videos. I hope you all have a nice day. I'll catch you in the next one.